The afternoon sun hung low over the dusty streets of Willow Creek, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the cracked sidewalk. In the small playground behind Elmwood Elementary, a group of children scattered like leaves in the wind, their laughter echoing off the chain-link fence. But amid the chaos, one voice pierced the air, a sharp, terrified cry from a little girl no older than 8. Her backpack slung haphazardly over one shoulder as she backed away from 2 shadowy figures lurking near the school's side gate. They weren't parents. Their eyes were too cold, their movements too deliberate, like predators circling in the fading light. The girl, Lily, clutched a crumpled drawing in her fist, her wide eyes darting for escape. But the men closed in, one whispering something that made her freeze in fear. The air thickened with unspoken dread, the scent of exhaust from idling vans nearby, mingling with the metallic tang of panic. That's when Sofia Ramirez noticed. She was just a high school senior, walking home from her shift at the corner diner, her sneakers scuffing the pavement as she cut through the school grounds, a shortcut she'd taken 100 times without a second thought. But today, something tugged at her gut, an instinct honed from years of watching her own neighborhood fray at the edges. Sofia paused, her heart pounding like a distant drum. Lily was the daughter of Ethan Kane, the quiet biker who rolled through town on his weathered Harley, the one everyone whispered about, the veteran with scars hidden under ink and leather, a man who'd lost his wife to a hit-and-run years ago and raised Lily alone. Sofia had seen them together at the gas station, Ethan's rough hand gentle on her shoulder, promising pancakes on Sundays. Now, Lily was cornered, and no one else seemed to see. Sofia didn't hesitate. She dropped her bag and sprinted forward, her voice cutting through the playground din like a siren. "Hey, get away from her!" The men turned, surprise flickering across their faces, hardened types with tattoos peeking from collar lines, and a van idling just beyond the fence. One stepped forward, his hand shooting out to grab Lily's arm. But Sofia was faster. She wedged herself between them, shoving the man back with all her strength, her elbow connecting with his chest. "Touch her, and I'll scream this whole town down," Lily whimpered, clinging to Sofia's side, the drawing fluttering to the ground. A crayon sketch of a motorcycle and a smiling family. The men exchanged a glance, then backed off slowly, melting into the lengthening shadows as if they'd never been there. But Sofia knew better. This wasn't random. Her hands trembled as she knelt to Lily's level, pulling out her phone. "It's okay, sweetie. We're getting your dad." Ethan Kane was nursing a coffee in the dim glow of his garage workshop when his phone buzzed, a number he didn't recognize. But the voice on the other end shattered the quiet like breaking glass. "Mr. Kane, it's Sofia from down the street. Your daughter's at the school. Something's wrong. 2 guys were trying to take her." The words hit him like a punch, his mug shattering on the concrete floor, hot liquid splashing across his boots. Ethan's world narrowed to a pinpoint. Lily, his anchor, the last piece of Sarah he had left. He'd promised her on the day they buried her mother no harm would come to this family, not while he breathed. But promises had a way of fraying in Willow Creek, where old debts from his military days lingered like smoke, and whispers of a local syndicate pulling strings in the shadows had reached even his ears. He was on his bike in seconds, the engine roaring to life with a guttural thunder that rattled the tools on the walls. The Harley-Davidson Fat Boy, its chrome gleaming under the fluorescent lights, had carried him through deserts and firefights, but now it was a lifeline. Ethan gunned the throttle, tires screeching as he tore out of the driveway, the wind whipping his salt and pepper hair from under his bandana. The town blurred past, faded diners, rusted picket fences, the faint smell of rain on asphalt. But his mind raced ahead. Who would dare? The syndicate, rivals from his past. He'd walked away from that life after Sarah's death, trading black ops for quiet repairs at the local shop, but shadows had a way of following. By the time he skidded into the school parking lot, The sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples and oranges. Sophia stood there, Lily wrapped in her arms, the girl's face buried in her jacket. Ethan dismounted in a fluid motion, his boots crunching gravel, leather jacket creaking as he strode forward. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned the area first, instinct from years in the sand, before softening on his daughter. "Lily," he murmured, kneeling to pull her close. She sobbed into his chest, the scent of her strawberry shampoo mixing with the oil on his hands. Sophia stepped back, her cheeks flushed, but Ethan caught her arm gently. "You saved her." "Why?" Sophia swallowed, glancing at the gate where the men had vanished. "I just saw it, felt it. She's a good kid, no one should—" Her voice cracked, and Ethan nodded, a flicker of gratitude breaking through his stoic mask. In that moment, amid the cooling air and the distant hum of traffic, a new promise formed, unspoken but ironclad. This girl, this stranger, had become part of his chosen family. But as he loaded Lily onto the bike, her small arms around his waist, Ethan knew this was no isolated scare. The syndicate's reach was growing, and old oaths would demand he ride into the storm. The next morning dawned crisp, the desert wind carrying the faint howl of coyotes from the outskirts. Ethan hadn't slept, his mind replaying the call, the shadows at the gate. He dropped Lily at a neighbor's, a trusted widow from his veterans group, before heading to the Iron Oath Clubhouse, a weathered barn on the edge of town where his crew gathered. The Iron Oath wasn't just a motorcycle club, it was a brotherhood forged in fire, men and women who'd traded uniforms for vests, bound by codes deeper than blood. Ethan had founded it after Sarah's funeral, a promise to protect what mattered in a world that chewed up the innocent. Inside, the air smelled of stale coffee and machine oil, fluorescent bulbs buzzing overhead. His second, Marcus, a burly ex-marine with a prosthetic leg, looked up from polishing his bike. "Boss, what's got you up at this hour?" Ethan leaned against a workbench, his voice low and gravelly. "Lily, almost taken yesterday, school grounds." Murmurs rippled through the room as the crew assembled, 10 strong that morning, vests embroidered with the oath's symbol, a chain unbroken by flames. Faces hardened. Jenna, the sharp-eyed mechanic who'd lost a brother to the same syndicate. Tyler, the young hothead with a knack for intel, and the rest, a tapestry of scars and stories. "We ride for family," Ethan said, his words echoing off the rafters. "That's the oath, but this, it's bigger. I need eyes on the school, the streets, quiet. No guns, no noise. Just truth." Marcus nodded, clapping his shoulder. "We're with you, Ethan. Always." As the engines fired up outside, a low rumble building like thunder, Sophia's face flashed in Ethan's mind. She'd stopped it once, but the instinct that saved Lily now pulled him toward a reckoning. The syndicate thought they owned Willow Creek, but promises like his didn't break. They bent the world to honor them. Yet doubt gnawed at the edges. Ethan had buried too many ghosts. The op in the desert that cost him friends, the hit and run that stole Sarah, leaving him hollow. Raising Lily had been his redemption. Quiet days of school runs and bedtime stories. But now, with the sun climbing, casting golden light on the club's bikes lined like sentinels, he felt the weight of it all. Sophia had called him a hero once, in passing at the diner, but heroes bled. As he mounted his Harley, the leather seat warm under him, Ethan whispered a vow to the wind. For Lily, for Sarah, for the girl who'd stood in the gap, he'd uncover the truth no matter the cost. The convoy rolled out, dust swirling in their wake, toward a town on the brink, where loyalty would clash with corruption in the harsh light of day. The convoy cut through Willow Creek like a blade through silk, the rumble of engines vibrating through the sun-baked streets, turning heads in the quiet morning haze. Ethan led the pack, his Harley at the forefront, the wind tugging at his vest as if urging him onward. Behind him, the Iron Oath stretched out, Marcus on his customized Softail, Jenna riding shotgun on a sleek Sportster, Tyler scouting ahead on his nimble Scout. They weren't a roaring horde today. Ethan had called for subtlety, engines tuned low, no flags flying high. The air carried the sharp bite of sagebrush from the desert fringes, mingling with the exhaust that trailed like ghosts in their wake. Willow Creek unfolded around them, the faded sign of the local mill, boarded-up shops whispering of harder times, and the school looming just ahead, its playground now empty under the climbing sun. Sophia Ramirez watched from her diner's window, wiping down the counter with a rag that smelled faintly of bleach and yesterday's fries. She'd barely slept, the image of Lily's tear-streaked face etched in her mind like a bad dream that wouldn't fade. School had let out early for a teacher meeting, but Sophia's shift started at dawn, her mind replaying the men's cold stares. The way the van's door had creaked open just a crack before she intervened. Why her? She wasn't family, not really. Just a neighbor kid who'd grown up dodging the rough edges of this town. Her own parents long gone to the city lights, leaving her with an aunt who worked double shifts. But something in Ethan's grateful nod yesterday had stirred her, a quiet pull toward the biker's world of oaths and unspoken bonds. As the bikes pulled into the school lot, gravel crunching under tires, Principal Harlan emerged from the office door, his tie askew, clipboard clutched like a shield. He was a wiry man in his 50s, the kind who enforced rules with a sigh rather than a shout, but today his face was pale, etched with the weight of whatever report he'd filed overnight. Ethan killed his engine first, the sudden silence amplifying the distant call of a mockingbird. He dismounted, boots hitting the ground with a solid thud, and approached with measured steps, his crew fanning out behind him like shadows. "Principal," Ethan said, voice steady as desert rock, "we need to talk about yesterday. Lily Kane, my daughter." Harlan glanced at the group, eyes widening at the leather vests and the subtle tension in their stances. "Mr. Kane, The police were here. It's under investigation. 2 unidentified men attempted interference. But the girl's safe now, thanks to that Ramirez girl." He shifted, avoiding Ethan's gaze, the clipboard creaking in his grip. Sophia's intervention had bought time, but the principal's words hung heavy. Interference, a sanitized term that masked the chill of real threat. Ethan leaned in slightly, his presence filling the space without force. "Investigation? Or cover-up? I've heard whispers. Syndicate pulling strings, making kids vanish for leverage." The principal's Adam's apple bobbed, and he lowered his voice, glancing over his shoulder at the empty halls beyond the door. "Look, Ethan's a good man, but this town's changing. Debts from the old mill days, favors owed. I can't say more. My job's on the line." Jenna stepped forward then, her toolkit slung over one shoulder, grease smudges on her jeans, speaking of hands that fixed more than machines. "We're not here to cause trouble," she said, her tone even, eyes locking on Harlan's. "Just answers. For the kid." Tyler, ever the quick one, slipped away toward the side gate, his phone out, snapping discreet photos of the fence line, where scuff marks lingered like clues in the dust. Back at the diner, Sophia couldn't shake the unease. She'd skipped her afternoon classes, texting a friend to cover, and now she paced the back alley, the sun warming the bricks against her back. Her phone buzzed. Lily's neighbor thanking her again, but the girl's voice in the background sounded small, fragile. Sophia's instinct flared. She needed to do more. Grabbing her jacket, she headed toward the school, the shortcut through the park where wildflowers nodded in the breeze. That's when she saw them again, or thought she did. A black sedan idled at the curb near the playground, tinted windows reflecting the sky like mirrors. A man stepped out. Not the same faces from yesterday, but the vibe was identical, watchful, predatory. Sophia's pulse quickened, her sneakers silent on the grass as she circled wide, heart hammering. At the school, Ethan's conversation with Harlan deepened into tense whispers. The principal admitted fragments, a pattern of missing kids from low-income families, whispers of a foster ring tied to the syndicate, using the system like a web. "It's not just random," Harlan murmured, sweat beading on his brow. "They target the vulnerable, your Lily. Her mother's accident. Some say it wasn't clean." The words landed like shrapnel, reopening scars Ethan had stitched shut years ago. Sarah's hit and run, the driver never found, the police report buried under insufficient evidence. Rage flickered in his chest, but he tamped it down, the oath holding him steady. Justice through truth, not vengeance. Marcus clapped a hand on Ethan's shoulder as Harlan retreated inside. "We got this, boss. Tyler's checking the van tracks, leads to the old warehouse district." The crew remounted, but Ethan paused, scanning the lot. That's when Sophia burst from the tree line, breathless, pointing toward the sedan. "There! I saw it. Same feel as yesterday. They're watching." Her eyes met Ethan's, fierce and unyielding, and in that shared glance, the circle widened. She wasn't just a witness anymore. Her gut had pulled her into the fray, binding her to the oath without a word. The group moved as one, bikes humming to life, but Ethan signaled a hold. No chase yet. Intel first. Tyler confirmed via radio. The sedan's plates were fakes, traced to a shell company in the next county. As they rolled out toward the warehouse edges, the desert wind picking up, carrying the faint scent of creosote bushes, Ethan felt the weight shift. This wasn't just about Lily. It was a thread unraveling the town's underbelly, corruption festering like an untreated wound. Sophia rode pillion behind Jenna, her arms tentative around the mechanic's waist, the engine's vibrations sinking with her resolve. She'd stepped in once by instinct. Now it was purpose. By midday, the convoy ghosted into the industrial sprawl, rusted silos standing sentinel against the horizon. The warehouse loomed, its corrugated walls scarred by years of neglect, doors chained but gaps whispering secrets. Tyler dismounted first, slipping through a side panel, his flashlight cutting shadows inside. Voices echoed faintly, low, urgent, discussing deliveries and the next pickup. Ethan waited outside, ears straining, the sun beating down on his back like judgment. Sophia whispered from her vantage, "What if it's all connected? The school, the accident." Her words hung, stirring Ethan's ghosts. The promise to Sarah, whispered in a hospital room as monitors beeped their final rhythm. He'd protect Lily, yes, but now, with this makeshift family closing ranks, the fight was for all the lost ones in Willow Creek. Dusk crept in as they pulled back, no confrontation, just enough to confirm the syndicate's hand. Ethan gathered the crew at a roadside pullout, the sky bruising to twilight. "We expose them," he said, voice gravel over steel. Quietly, papers, witnesses, no blood. Nods rippled through, but doubt lingered in Jenna's eyes. She'd seen too many brothers fall to shadows like these. Sophia, still catching her breath from the ride, met Ethan's gaze. "I'm in," she said simply. The oath expanded again, a chain forged in the fading light, pulling them toward a moral storm where loyalty would be tested and redemption carved from the dust. As engines roared anew, heading home under stars pricking the velvet sky, Ethan knew the real ride had just begun, one that would demand every scar, every promise, to hold the line. The night air hung heavy over Willow Creek, thick with the scent of cooling earth and distant rain. As Ethan's convoy splintered back to their corners of the town, his Harley purred to a stop in the driveway of his modest ranch house, the porch light flickering like a weary beacon against the encroaching dark. Lily was already asleep inside, tucked in by the neighbor, her small chest rising and falling under the quilt Sarah had sewn years ago. Patchwork stars that now seemed to mock the shadows gathering outside. Ethan killed the engine, the sudden quiet amplifying the creak of his leather as he dismounted, boots scraping the gravel, His mind churned with the warehouse echoes, those hushed voices, the crates stacked like secrets in the gloom, hints of a network preying on the town's forgotten edges. Sophia slid off Jenna's bike a block away, her legs unsteady from the ride, the vibration still humming through her bones. Jenna gave her a nod, her calloused hand squeezing Sophia's shoulder. "You held on like a pro, kid. Get some rest. This ain't over." Sophia watched the mechanic roar off, tail light fading into the night, before slipping through the side gate to her aunt's duplex. The alley smelled of damp leaves and overflowing bins, a familiar grit that grounded her racing thoughts. Why had she jumped in? School, diner shifts, dodging her aunt's weary lectures. That was her world. But Lily's eyes, wide with trust after the scare, had cracked something open, and Ethan's glance, steady as forged steel, pulled her deeper. She paused at her door, phone in hand, thumb hovering over his number. Not yet. Instinct said, "Wait, watch, listen." Inside the Iron Oath clubhouse, later that hour, the air grew thick with cigarette smoke and the low murmur of strategy. Ethan paced the scarred wooden table, its surface etched with knife marks from nights like this, planning runs that blurred the line between vigilance and vigilante. Marcus leaned back in a folding chair, his prosthetic leg propped on a crate, while Tyler tapped away on a battered laptop, pulling threads from the digital shadows. "Sedans registered to a Ghost Corp, Bayview Holdings," Tyler said, his voice cutting the haze like a blade. "Tied to Foster Placements, but the address is looped back to that warehouse. And get this, Sarah's accident report. Buried deep, but there's a payout linked to the same outfit. Insurance flagged it suspicious. Then nothing." Ethan's fist clenched on the table's edge, knuckles whitening against the wood. Sarah's face flashed. Her laugh in the kitchen. Flour-dusted hands shaping dough, promising Lily a future unscarred by his past. The hit-and-run had come on a rain-slick road, tires screeching into eternity, leaving him with a daughter and a vow etched in grief. No more losses to the dark. He'd walked from the Black Ops life, the syndicate's web of favors and threats that had ensnared him during deployment. But now it coiled back, targeting Lily to settle old scores. "They think they can use her to drag me out," he growled, voice low, the words tasting like ash. Jenna crossed her arms, her ponytail swinging as she shook her head. Or worse, leverage for the whole town. "Those kids vanishing? It's a pipeline. We shut the warehouse, we cut the head." The debate stretched, tension coiling like a spring. Marcus advocated patience, gather proof, loop in a clean cop from the county line. Tyler pushed for direct recon, his youth fueling a fire Ethan remembered from his own early days. Jenna, ever the fixer, sketched a map on a napkin. Entry points, blind spots, the river's bend hiding their approach. Sophia's name surfaced too, her eyes at the school, sharp as a hawk's. "She's got guts," Ethan admitted, rubbing the stubble on his jaw. "But she's not one of us, can't drag her in deeper." Yet doubt flickered. Her instinct had saved Lily once. In this fight, family wasn't born, it was forged in the crucible of choice. Dawn broke with a pale wash over the desert, painting the club's bikes in muted gold as the crew dispersed to their watches. Ethan rode solo to the old mill ruins on the town's fringe, a skeletal frame of rust and forgotten labor, where whispers said the syndicate laundered more than money. The wind whipped through the gaps in the iron beams, carrying the faint tang of rust and wild thyme. He dismounted, scanning the ground, tire tracks fresh in the soft dirt, leading to a chained gate half hidden by scrub. Kneeling, he traced the treads with gloved fingers, the leather creaking softly, not the sedans, heavier, like a truck hauling weight. Human weight. The thought twisted in his gut, stirring memories of patrols in foreign sands, promises broken under fire. Back in town, Sophia's shift at the diner blurred into autopilot, plates clattering, coffee brewing with its bitter steam. the sizzle of bacon masking her unease. Customers trickled in, farmers with calloused hands, a teacher nursing black tea, but her eyes kept drifting to the window, watching for shadows. Around noon the bell jingled, and Principal Harlan shuffled in, his face drawn tighter than yesterday, ordering pie he barely touched. Sophia poured his coffee, leaning close under the guise of service. "The police come back?" she asked, voice pitched low over the hum of the fan. Harlan's spoon stirred absently, clinking against porcelain. "Worse. Brass from the city, asking questions about incidents. But it's all smoke. They lean on us to keep quiet, say it's for the kids' safety." His eyes darted to the door, then back. "That biker crew, stirring things, if you know anything." Sophia's grip tightened on the pot, hot metal searing through her rag. She thought of Lily's drawing, crumpled but unbroken, and the men's vanishing act. "I know enough to see it's wrong," she whispered. "The Canes, they're good people." Harlan sighed, pushing his plate away, the pie untouched like a bad omen. As he left, coins rattling on the counter, Sophia felt the pull sharpen. She couldn't sit idle. The instinct that had launched her into the playground now demanded action. By afternoon, Ethan rendezvoused with Tyler at the river's edge, the water murmuring over smooth stones, sunlight dappling the willows like fractured light on a screen. Tyler had tailed a lead, a low-level runner for the syndicate, spotted unloading crates at a nondescript garage. "He's jumpy," Tyler reported, binoculars slung around his neck. "Mentioned a special pickup tonight, school adjacent." Ethan's jaw set, the oath burning in his chest. No more waiting. But as they planned the intercept, quiet, no lights, just presence, Sophia's text lit his phone. "Saw Harlan at diner. He's scared. Something big tonight. Lily safe." He stared at the screen, the river's rush echoing his pulse. She was in, whether he willed it or not. Twilight deepened as the crew assembled in the club's shadows, engines idling like restrained beasts. Jenna handed Sophia a spare helmet, her grin wry. "You sure, kid? This ride's got teeth." Sophia nodded, buckling the strap, the weight settling like resolve. Ethan met her eyes across the lineup, a silent pact forming in the dimming light. No words, just the unbreakable thread of loyalty. The convoy slipped out, tires whispering on asphalt, toward the garage where corruption hid in plain sight. The air cooled, carrying the promise of confrontation, where truths would surface like bones from the dust, testing every bond in the gathering night. Ethan led, wind slicing his face, Sarah's memory a ghost at his side. Honor the oath, protect the light. For Lily, for them all, the line held, fragile, fierce, unyielding. The garage squatted on the edge of Willow Creek's industrial scar, a hulking relic of sheet metal and faded paint, its bays yawning open like silent accusations under the deepening twilight. Floodlights buzzed to life overhead, casting harsh pools of yellow that fractured the encroaching shadows, while the air hummed with the low throb of a generator and the sharp scent of motor oil mingled with something acrid, chemicals perhaps, or the tang of fear sweat from hidden dealings. Ethan eased his Harley to a stop behind a cluster of overgrown junipers, the engine's rumble fading to a whisper as the convoy followed suit, tires crunching softly on the gravel shoulder. They were ghosts now, silhouettes against the bruised sky. The Iron Oath's code demanding precision over fury, observe, expose, uphold the promise without shattering the fragile line of law. Sophia clung to Jenna's bike, her heart sinking with the residual vibration, the helmet's visor fogging slightly from her quick breaths. The ride had blurred the town into streaks of neon and dusk, but now, dismounting with legs that felt like borrowed strength, she scanned the scene. The runner Tyler had tailed, a wiry figure in a grease-stained jacket, paced near a side door, glancing at his watch under the flickering light. A panel truck idled nearby, its rear doors ajar, revealing stacked boxes that shifted with muffled thuds, as if breathing secrets. Sophia's instinct prickled again, sharper than before, whispering of children huddled in the dark, promises broken before they could form. She'd crossed into this world on a whim, but Ethan's nod back at the club had sealed it, an unspoken oath pulling her forward, family forged in the quiet spaces between danger and dawn. Ethan signaled with a gloved hand, a subtle wave that sent Tyler and Marcus flanking left, Jenna and Sophia holding the right vantage behind a rusted dumpster. The wind picked up, rustling the junipers with a dry hiss, carrying fragments of conversation from the garage. "Pickup's late. Keep 'em quiet till the foster papers clear." Ethan's jaw tightened under his bandana, the words landing like echoes from his own haunted nights. Sarah's accident, the buried report, now this pipeline of vanished kids funneled into shadows for profit. He'd sworn on her grave to shield the innocent, to trade his scars for their safety, but the syndicate's web stretched further than he'd imagined, corruption seeping into the town's veins like slow poison. No guns tonight, the oath forbade it. Truth would be their weapon, carved from evidence and unyielding witness. Tyler crept closer, his scout bike tucked out of sight, phone camera ready as he peered through a chain-link gap. The runner paused, lighting a cigarette, the flame illuminating a face etched with jittery lines, eyes darting like a cornered animal. Inside, another voice barked orders, low and urgent, the clank of metal suggesting restraints or locks. Sophia's breath caught. She pictured Lily's drawing, the crayon motorcycle a beacon of what these shadows threatened. Jenna placed a steadying hand on her arm, the mechanic's grip firm yet gentle, a sister's touch in the chill air. "Breathe, kid. We see it through. Together." The words anchored her, the chosen family's bond weaving tighter, a counter to the isolation that had defined her days since her parents left. Ethan moved then, a shadow detaching from the junipers, boots silent on the packed earth as he approached the runner from the blind side. The man spun at the faint scuff, cigarette dropping in a shower of sparks, his hand fumbling toward a pocket. "Easy," Ethan said, voice gravel low, hands visible and empty, the club's patch on his vest catching the light like a warning emblem. "We're not here for you, just answers. The kids, the pickups. Ends tonight." The runner's eyes widened, flicking to the surrounding dark where the crew's outlines hinted at numbers unspoken. Sweat beaded on his brow, the air between them thick with the unspoken calculus of survival. "You don't get it," he stammered, backing toward the door. "They own this town, debts from way back, the mill, the force. Cross 'em and it's not just you." Sophia's pulse thrummed as she edged forward with Jenna, the dumpster's edge cold against her palm. She caught a glimpse through the bay, crates labeled innocuous, but one lid ajar revealed glimpses, small shoes, a backpack like Lily's, signs of distress in the disarray. Her stomach twisted, the moral weight pressing like the desert night closing in. This wasn't abstract, it was the frayed edge of promises, the corruption that preyed on the vulnerable, while authorities turned blind eyes. Ethan pressed gently, his presence a wall of quiet authority. "I've got debts too, old ones from sands far off, but I keep my word. Help us stop this, and maybe you find a way out." The runner hesitated, the truck's engine coughing as if urging flight, but doubt cracked his facade. A nod, reluctant, and he jerked his thumb toward a side office. "Papers in there, proof, but if they catch—" Tyler slipped in first, the crew converging like a tide, the air electric with restrained tension. Inside the cramped space, fluorescent hum overhead, they rifled drawers, foster forms forged, ledgers linking Bayview Holdings to the warehouse, even a faded photo tying back to Sarah's crash site, a partial plate matching the payout trail. Ethan's fingers stilled on the image, the hit-and-run's ghost rising sharp, not accident but erasure, a thread in the syndicate's tapestry. Rage simmered. But the oath held it in check. Justice through light, not the dark. Sophia gathered a stack, her hands steady now, the act of collection a redemption in itself, turning instinct to action. Outside, the runner bolted for the truck, but Marcus stepped into his path, not with force but a blocking stance, prosthetic leg planted firm. "Walk away clean," Marcus rumbled, "or we call it in now." The man froze, then nodded, vanishing into the night as the truck peeled out, tires spitting gravel like fleeing accusations. The crew exfiltrated swiftly, evidence tucked into saddlebags, the garage receding in their mirrors as engines purred to life. The ride back wound through moonlit roads, the wind a cool caress carrying the faint scent of sage and resolve. Ethan glanced at Sophia in the lineup, her form silhouetted against Jenna's tail light, a new link in the chain, her courage echoing his own buried vows. Back at the clubhouse, under the rafters' watchful beams, they spread the papers on the scarred table, the air thick with coffee steam and the weight of discovery. Tyler cross-referenced on his laptop, threads connecting the syndicate to city brass, the school's overlooked reports, even Harlan's uneasy sighs at the diner. "This blows it open," he said, voice hushed with awe. Jenna nodded, sketching connections on a whiteboard, her marker strokes decisive, but Ethan paced, the moral dilemma coiling. Expose it all, risk the town's fragile peace, or strike surgically. Sophia spoke up, her voice cutting the murmur like a clear bell. "For Lily, for all of them, we honor what's right. No more shadows." Her words landed true, stirring the room, the chosen family's loyalty a bulwark against the storm. As midnight tolled distant, Ethan stepped outside, the club's neon sign buzzing faintly, stars wheeling overhead like witnesses to oaths renewed. Sarah's memory lingered in the breeze, a gentle push toward dawn's light. The evidence was their sword, but the real battle loomed, confronting the heart of corruption, where personal redemption intertwined with the town's soul. Sophia joined him, leaning on the porch rail, the night's quiet wrapping them in shared silence. "I didn't choose this," she murmured, "but it chose me." Ethan met her gaze, a faint smile cracking his stoic lines. That's how family starts. The promise held, ironclad, pulling them toward the reckoning where justice would rise, unbowed. If this tale of quiet courage and unbreakable bonds has you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button. It helps spread these stories of honor to those who need them most. The first light of morning filtered through the clubhouse windows like hesitant fingers, chasing away the night's shadows, but not the tension that clung to the air like engine grease. Ethan stood at the scarred table, the stack of pilfered papers spread before him like a battlefield map, their edges curling under the weight of revelations. The fluorescent bulbs hummed overhead, casting stark lines on the faces of his crew. Marcus, nursing a black coffee, his prosthetic leg tapping a restless rhythm. Jenna poring over the ledgers with a mechanic's precision, her grease-stained fingers tracing connections that linked the syndicate to the heart of Willow Creek's decay. Tyler hunched over his laptop, the screen's glow illuminating the dark circles under his eyes as he hacked through digital veils. Sophia sat at the edge, her school backpack forgotten in the corner, a mug of untouched tea cooling in her hands. The scent of stale smoke and fresh brew mingled with the faint metallic tang of determination. The room a forge where oaths were hammered into action. Ethan's gaze lingered on a faded photocopy, a grainy image of Sarah's wrecked car, twisted metal and shattered glass frozen in time, the partial license plate matching the one in the payout records. It wasn't an accident, it was a message, a severance from his past entanglements with the syndicate during his Black Ops days, when favors traded like ammunition in the desert heat. He'd walked away for her, for Lily, promising a life unscarred by the shadows he'd navigated. But now those shadows had lengthened. coiling around his daughter to pull him back. "This ties it all," he said, voice rough as gravel under tires, breaking the quiet. "The hit and run, the kids, the foster scams. Bayview's the front, City Hall's the puppet master." His fist rested on the table, not slamming but steady, the oath's chain tattoo peeking from his sleeve like a reminder. Honor through truth, not the blade. Jenna looked up, her eyes sharp behind a stray lock of hair. "Principal Harlan's name pops here too, sign-offs on placements that went south. He's in deep or scared stiff." She tapped a forged form, the ink smudged like a guilty conscience. Sophia leaned in, her breath catching at the list of names. Children from the school's fringes, families like hers, scraping by on the town's worn edges. One entry blurred in her vision. A girl her age, vanished last spring, chalked up to runaway. The moral weight pressed on her chest, heavier than the helmet she'd worn the night before. She'd started this with a gut pull in the playground, but now it was a reckoning, her instinct weaving her into the fabric of Ethan's world. "We take this to the county sheriff," she said, voice gaining steel. "The clean one Marcus mentioned. No more whispers. Let the light hit it." Marcus shifted, the chair creaking under his bulk. "Risky. If the brass is tangled, it bounces back on us. Club's rep takes the hit. Bikers as meddlers." His words hung, stirring the room's undercurrent of doubt. Tyler spun his laptop, pulling up a grainy feed from a traffic cam near the garage. "But look, last night's runner, he's talking to someone now, spilling maybe. We intercept, get him on record." The debate ignited, voices overlapping like revving engines, patience versus pursuit, exposure versus erasure. Ethan listened, his mind drifting to Lily, safe at the neighbors, but her laughter dimmed by fear. The promise to Sarah echoed in the quiet pauses. Protect the light, no matter the cost. Sophia caught his eye across the table, her nod a silent anchor, the chosen family's bond tightening against the fray. By mid-morning they split tasks with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Ethan and Sophia headed to the county line, the Harley cutting through sun-dappled roads where wild grasses bowed in the breeze, carrying the earthy scent of sage and sun-warmed asphalt. The wind tugged at Sophia's jacket as she rode pillion, her arms around Ethan's waist, the steady thrum of the engine sinking with her resolve. Willow Creek receded in the mirrors, its dusty streets giving way to open stretches where the horizon blurred sky and sand. "You ever think of leaving this?" she asked over the roar. Her words snatched by the gusts. Ethan glanced back, his bandana fluttering. "Tried once. For her. But promises root you deeper than you plan." The vulnerability in his tone cracked the stoic shell, a glimpse of the man beneath the leather, scarred by losses that mirrored her own, parents chasing dreams, leaving echoes. The county sheriff's office squatted in a low brick building off the highway, its flag snapping in the wind like a challenge. Sheriff Elena Vasquez was a no-nonsense type, her uniform crisp, eyes weathered by years sifting truth from the town's grit. Ethan laid the papers on her desk without preamble, the stack thudding softly, while Sophia recounted the playground scare, her voice steady despite the knot in her throat. Vasquez flipped through, her expression hardening at the connections, the forged docs, the payout trails, the whisper of syndicate tendrils reaching into foster care and old accidents. "This is dynamite," she murmured, the air in the office thick with the scent of old files and cooling coffee. "But if it's city-tied, it'll stir a hornet's nest. You sure you want your names on this?" Ethan's nod was iron. "For the kids. For my daughter. The oath demands it." Sophia added her piece, the weight of her witness sealing the pact, turning bystander to ally in the sheriff's measured gaze. Back on the road, the sun climbed higher, baking the leather seats as they raced toward Willow Creek. Tyler's text buzzed Ethan's phone mid-ride, runner cornered at the old mill, spilling to Jenna and Marcus. They veered off course. Tires kicking dust into the air, the mill's skeletal frame rising like a ghost against the blue. The crew had the man pinned, not with force, but words and the glint of a recorder. He cracked under the pressure, voice trembling as he detailed the pipeline. Kids snatched for black market adoptions, leverage on families, the hit-and-run ordered to silence Ethan's exit from the fold. "Bossman's Harlan's cousin," he gasped, sweat streaking his face in the relentless heat. "They own the school board, the force. Tonight's the big move, warehouse full, heading out before dawn." Ethan's blood ran cold, the pieces locking like a cylinder in a lock. Harlan, the uneasy principal, the thread to it all. The runner bolted into the scrub as they let him go, a small mercy in the moral grey. Jenna wiped her brow, the sun glinting off her toolkit. "We hit the warehouse now? End it clean?" But Ethan shook his head, the oath's code flashing. No rash strikes. "Sheriff's got the papers. We back her play. Witnesses, not warriors." Sophia stood beside him, the desert wind whipping her hair, her instinct now ablaze. The family had grown. Links forged in the heat, pulling them toward the storm's eye, where corruption would face the unyielding light of truth. As afternoon waned, the convoy reformed at the clubhouse, plans sharpening like a blade on whetstone. The air buzzed with purpose, the scent of revving engines promising motion. Ethan stepped onto the porch, phone in hand to check on Lily, her voice a bright thread in the tension. "Daddy, when's story time?" The innocence pierced him, fueling the vow. Sophia joined, leaning on the rail, the horizon stretching endless. "We're close," she said softly, "to making it right." He nodded, the shared silence a bond deeper than blood, the promise expanding to shield not just one, but the fragile hearts of Willow Creek. Night loomed, heavy with impending clash, where loyalty would stand trial and redemption rise from the ashes of buried sins. The moon hung low over Willow Creek like a silver medallion, its pale glow filtering through the clubhouse windows and casting elongated shadows across the scarred table where the evidence lay scattered. The air inside was thick with the aroma of cooling coffee and the faint, acrid bite of printer ink from Tyler's hasty copies, the fluorescent lights humming a steady underscore to the crew's hushed deliberations. Ethan leaned against the wall, arms crossed over his leather vest, the chain tattoo on his forearm catching the light like a whispered vow. Sarah's photo stared up from the pile, her smile frozen in a moment before the shadows claimed her. A reminder that this fight wasn't just for Lily. It was for every promise frayed by the syndicate's grasp. The runner's confession echoed in his mind, Harlan's cousin at the helm, the warehouse primed for a midnight exodus, crates of innocence bound for unseen markets. Sophia paced the room's edge, her sneakers scuffing the worn linoleum. The weight of the day pressing on her shoulders like an ill-fitting jacket. The ride to the sheriff had felt like crossing a threshold, Vasquez's nod sealing their path, but now doubt flickered in the quiet hours. She'd glimpsed the ledger's cold arithmetic, names of kids like ghosts, placements twisted into profit, families shattered for leverage. Her own story mirrored the margins. Aunt's weary shifts, parents' faded letters from the city, a life pieced together from diner tips and school hallways. But Ethan's steady presence had woven her in, the iron oath's bond, a lifeline against the isolation. "We can't wait for dawn," she said, stopping to face the group, her voice cutting the murmur like a clear desert wind. "If they're moving tonight, those kids, we have to be there." Jenna looked up from her napkin map, the sketched lines of the warehouse district branching like veins under skin. "Sheriff's play is solid, raids coordinated, no lone wolves. But yeah, eyes on the ground first, scout it quiet." Her tone carried the grit of someone who'd fixed engines and hearts alike, her ponytail tied back with a rag that smelled faintly of oil. Marcus nodded, shifting his prosthetic with a soft click, the sound a punctuation in the tension. "I'll ride point with Tyler. Perimeter watch. Cameras, no contact." Tyler grinned faintly, closing his laptop with a snap, the screen's afterglow lingering on his face. Got drones from an old contact, silent as ghosts. Ethan watched them, pride mingling with the ache of old scars. This crew, forged from veterans' fires and quiet redemptions, embodied the oath he'd sworn after Sarah's burial: no more losses to the indifferent machine. Outside, the night air cooled the club's gravel lot, carrying the earthy whisper of creosote from the desert fringes and the distant hum of highway traffic like a restless pulse. Ethan fired up his Harley first, the engine's low growl vibrating through his bones as Sophia climbed on behind him, her arms wrapping tentatively around his waist. The convoy formed in the moonlight, 5 bikes slipping into the dark, taillights winking like fireflies before vanishing into shadow. The road to the warehouse wound through scrubland, tires humming over cracked asphalt, the wind tugging at bandanas and jackets with insistent fingers. Ethan's mind raced ahead, Lily safe at home, her bedtime story postponed but the promise intact. He'd read to her about knights and dragons once, simplifying the world's monsters, but tonight the dragons were real, cloaked in suits and forged signatures, preying on the vulnerable. They ghosted into position a half-mile out, engines cut to silence, the warehouse looming like a rusted behemoth against the starry expanse. Floodlights pierced the gloom from its bays, illuminating stacks of crates and the silhouettes of men moving with purposeful efficiency, loading, checking manifests under the harsh glare. The air hung heavy with diesel fumes and the faint metallic tang of chains, a sensory veil over the hidden cargo. Tyler deployed the drone from a concealed pouch, its whir lost to the wind as it lifted, feeding grainy footage to his phone. Small forms huddled in the truck's belly, muffled whimpers suggesting fear more than fight. Sophia peered over his shoulder, her breath fogging the screen, the sight twisting like a knife. That's them, the missing ones. We can't just watch. Her instinct flared. The same pull that had launched her into the playground, now demanding she bridge the gap between witness and guardian. Ethan signaled a hold, his gloved hand steady in the dim light, but his eyes scanned the perimeter. Fence lines patrolled by shadows, a sedan idling near the gate with tinted menace. Harlan's involvement burned fresh. The principal's uneasy pie order at the diner now reeked of complicity, his sighs a cover for deeper ties. The oath tugged at Ethan, a moral compass in the grey. Intervene too soon, and the evidence scatters. Wait, and innocence slips away. Marcus's radio crackled softly. 2 more trucks inbound, heavy guard. The crew tensed, bodies low behind scrub and derelict machinery. The night's chill seeping through leather. Jenna whispered a prayer under her breath, an old habit from foxholes, her hand brushing Sophia's in silent solidarity. The chosen family held, breaths synced, loyalty a shield against the encroaching dark. Then movement shattered the vigil. A child's cry pierced the warehouse din, sharp and desperate, carrying on the breeze like a siren's call. Ethan's resolve cracked. He rose slightly, scanning for the source, the sound echoing Sarah's final labored breaths in the hospital, a plea he'd failed to answer in time. "We move," he murmured, voice gravel over steel. "Not to fight, to witness. Get it on record." Tyler nodded, drone adjusting as the crew crept forward in tandem, shadows merging with the landscape. Sophia followed, heart pounding like distant thunder, her phone capturing audio snippets, the barked orders, the rustle of restraints, the quiet sobs that spoke volumes. One guard paused near the fence, lighting a cigarette, its glow illuminating a face etched with the same jittery doubt as the runners. Opportunity flickered. Marcus edged closer, not with threat, but a low call. "Hey, end this. Walk." The man froze, ember flaring as he inhaled, eyes darting to the warehouse's glow. Seconds stretched, the air electric with unspoken choice. "Can't," he hissed finally, but hesitation lingered, a crack in the syndicate's armor. Before Marcus could press, headlights swept the lot, the inbound trucks rumbling in, gravel spitting under tires. The crew melted back, the cry fading into the mechanical roar, but the footage burned in their devices, irrefutable proof, the moral weight now a weapon. As they retreated under cover of night, engines silent until the highways bend, Ethan felt the oath swell. This wasn't vengeance, it was reclamation, truth rising from the dust, binding them tighter. Sophia's grip on the bike loosened into trust as they rode, the wind carrying them homeward, toward a dawn where justice would demand its due, unyielding as the chain that held them. Back at the clubhouse, the crew unloaded under the first hints of false dawn, the sky shifting from ink to indigo. Tyler synced the drone files to Vasquez's secure line, the upload's progress bar a ticking clock. Jenna brewed fresh coffee, its steam curling like resolve, while Marcus sketched contingencies on the whiteboard. Sophia sat with Ethan on the porch steps, the cool wood grounding them, stars fading overhead. That cry. "It changes everything," she said softly, the night's chill nipping at her words. Ethan nodded, his hand resting near hers, not touching but present, a gesture of shared burden. "It reminds us why. For them, for Lily, for the promises we keep." The bond deepened in the quiet, family chosen in the forge of trial, pulling them toward the final stand where corruption would face the light, and redemption carve its path through the scars. The first true light of dawn crept over Willow Creek's ragged horizon, painting the clubhouse roof in soft golds and pinks that chased the indigo remnants of night. Inside, the air stirred with the rich, grounding scent of Jenna's fresh coffee, steam rising in lazy spirals from mismatched mugs clustered on the scarred table. Tyler's laptop screen flickered with the completed upload, a digital handoff to Sheriff Vasquez that felt like passing a torch in the relay of justice. The drone footage played silently on loop, grainy shadows of the warehouse, the muffled cry cutting through like a thread of raw humanity, evidence that transformed whispers into thunder. Ethan stood at the window, his silhouette framed against the awakening sky, the leather of his vest creaking faintly as he shifted. The weight of the night clung to him, not as exhaustion but as purpose refined. The oath he'd forged in Sarah's memory, now a living flame shared by the circle around him. Sophia rose from the porch steps, the cool dew on the wood seeping through her sneakers, a subtle chill that mirrored the resolve hardening in her chest. The child's cry from the warehouse echoed in her ears, a sound that bridged her own quiet losses, parents' distant voices on crackling calls, an aunt's overburdened sighs, to the larger tapestry of broken promises in this town. She'd crossed into Ethan's world on instinct, a high school senior thrust into the fray by a playground shadow, but now she stood as equal, her hands steady as she gathered the printed stills from the footage. "Vasquez will move fast," she said, joining the group, her voice carrying the steady timbre of someone who'd found her place. "But we back it, eyes open, no gaps." Jenna nodded, capping her marker with a decisive snap. The whiteboard's lines a roadmap to reckoning, warehouse coordinates, Harlan's ties, the syndicate's fragile web exposed. Marcus leaned on the table, his prosthetic leg a silent testament to battles past, the faint click of its joint punctuating the quiet. Raids hit at first light, state boys looping in, clean sweep. We stay peripheral, witnesses if it boils. His words wove caution with commitment, the crew's bond a counterweight to the risks. Tyler pocketed his phone, the device's glow fading like a spent ember. Runners ghosted, but the footage? Ironclad. No wriggling out. Ethan turned from the window, his eyes meeting each face in turn, Jenna's fierce practicality, Marcus's unyielding support, Tyler's quick fire, Sophia's newfound steel. The Iron Oath wasn't blood, but choice, veterans trading foxholes for highways, a mechanic mending more than machines, a young woman stepping from the sidelines. In the soft dawn light filtering through cracks in the blinds, their unity gleamed like chrome after rain, unbreakable. The convoy mobilized as the sun crested fully, engines humming to life in the gravel lot, the air alive with the sharp tang of exhaust and warming earth. Ethan led on his Harley, Sophia pillion once more, her arms secure around him, the wind's early bite giving way to the day's building warmth. They ghosted toward the warehouse district, not as invaders but sentinels, positioning along the ridge where scrub brush offered cover and the desert stretched vast below. The warehouse sprawled in the valley, its corrugated walls catching the light like tarnished silver, floodlights dimming as activity stirred, trucks idling, figures scrambling in the sudden flood of sirens wailing from the east. Vasquez's team rolled in precise, unmarked vans slicing the dawn, state badges flashing as they breached the gates with measured force, the air filling with shouted commands and the metallic clank of doors yielding. From their vantage, the scene unfolded like a slow reveal in the harsh morning glare. Crates pried open, small forms emerging blinking into the light, wrapped in blankets by officers with gentle hands. No shots rang out. The syndicate's guards raised empty palms, the web unraveling under the weight of proof. Harlan's sedan was among the first seized, the principal's face ashen when Vasquez cuffed him at the perimeter, his clipboard useless against the tide. Ethan watched through binoculars, the lens framing the moral poetry. Corruption laid bare, not by fury, but by the quiet persistence of truth. Sophia's breath hitched beside him, her hand gripping his shoulder. "It's ending," she whispered, the words carrying the relief of a storm breaking. The child's cry from the night before resolved into faces, scared but safe, families notified in the rising sun, promises reclaimed from the shadows. Word spread through Willow Creek like ripples on the river, the diner buzzing by noon with hushed accounts, the school's flag at half-mast as investigations deepened. Ethan collected Lily from the neighbors, her small hand in his as they walked the sun-dappled sidewalk, the scent of blooming sagebrush mingling with her strawberry shampoo. "Daddy, is the bad gone?" she asked, clutching her drawing, restored, the crayon family whole. He knelt, meeting her eyes with the steady truth of his oath. "For now, kiddo, and we'll keep it that way." The scars remained. Sarah's ghost a gentle ache, but redemption bloomed in the ordinary. Pancakes at dawn, bedtime stories of quiet heroes. Sophia returned to her shift, the counter familiar yet transformed. Customers' nods carrying new respect. Principal Harlan's office stood empty, a placeholder for accountability, the foster system's fractures mending under scrutiny. The iron oath gathered that evening at the clubhouse, not in crisis, but celebration. Beers cracked under the rafters, laughter echoing off the walls, the table cleared of maps for shared stories. Ethan raised his mug, the foam catching the lamplight. "To the chain that holds," he said, voices joining in a low rumble. Sophia sat among them, no longer outsider, her instinct the spark that ignited the fire. The family chosen expanded, loyalty, a legacy etched deeper than ink, justice, a quiet victory in a cynical world. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the desert, Ethan rode solo to Sarah's grave on the hill's edge, the Harley idling soft as he placed wildflowers at the stone. The wind whispered through the pines, carrying the faint echo of engines from town below, a reminder that promises endured, bending but never breaking. Willow Creek breathed easier, its underbelly scarred but healing, the moral light of dawn chasing shadows for good. Thank you for riding this journey of courage and unbreakable bonds with us. If these tales of honor and redemption touch your heart, hit that subscribe button and join our family. More stories await on the horizon.